Hey everyone, my name is Justin. Nice to meet you. So we're going to start off with a quick question. Who here has heard of Kava? You people. Erin told me no one was going to raise their hand. Well, neither had I. Until one day, my buddy Jason and I were walking down the street in Miami, and we hear music playing, people laughing, having a great time. And we see this bar. Presumably looks like a tiki bar. We walk in, and I don't know what to order, so I point to this artisan-looking drink, right? And I tell the bartender, I'll have one of those. And the bartender goes back, he makes it, shakes it, brings it over. I take a sip, and I'm like, I don't taste any alcohol in this drink. And so I asked the bartender, what's in this? He says, Kava. I said, all right. What about the alcohol? He says, there is none. It's just tea. And so, my buddy Jason and I, we get quickly Googling, and I find out, Kava elevates your mood and your contentment. It produces feelings of relaxation. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So that makes sense why these people are having a great time in here. And so it's close enough to booze for Jason and I, so we stuck around and had a few more rounds. I don't know if that's what you call tea when you drink it back to back, but, that's what I'm going to call it. And the tea was good. Jason and I, we had a great time. We stuck around, and guess what? Best part of it? No hangover the next day. So, with that being said, I was still a little disappointed. I had walked into this tiki bar hoping I was going to sip on Mai Tais all night and catch a buzz with my buddy Jason. And that leads me to, the next thing, which is expectation is premeditated disappointment. And that's why I'm here today. Because we are, we as a society have developed expectations of what conversational AI should be like. Just like when I thought I was in a bar and I was going to be served alcohol and I was disappointed, even though, the tea was really great and Jason and I were having a really good time. I was still pretty disappointed, right? And when we engage with AI, we have this expectation that it's going to be like having a conversation with a person, right? So my buddy and I, Jason, are sitting at the bar, we're having a good time talking. He's not repeating the same thing when I ask him a question. So if I say, hey, how's that drink? He's not like, the Kava drink is great. And then I'm like, oh, okay, cool. What do you like about it? The Kava drink is great, right? He changes up his answer. He's like, oh, I like, the bitterness, or I like the sweetness, or I like that it doesn't have alcohol. And so, when we call an AI application, a conversational AI application, you tend to be a little disappointed because that's not the kind of responses you get, right? You get these more repetitive statements. So that is the broken promise of conversational AI. But is it really a broken promise, or is it the tech, or is it the way that we've implemented it and the expectations that we've imposed? So again, my name is Justin. I am an enterprise solution consultant for Five9. I am, Erin made the slide. I am an intelligent virtual agent expert. 3 years in the contact center, and before that, prior, I was 6 years as a software developer. I'm passionate about conversational AI since I've joined the contact center world. Excited to see what IVAs bring and provide to companies, and what it can do for consumers. And because I've been waiting for this for so long, since I was a little kid, waiting for AI since I was a kid, I want everyone to kind of take a trip back with me to when TVs weighed as much as a car. I would watch a show called Knight Rider with Michael Knight and Kit, and I'd watch this show, and I didn't realize it at the moment, but it was actually my first introduction to AI, right? More importantly, conversational AI. And you would see, Michael Knight raise his watch and, hey, Kit, come get me. And, of course, Kit would come back with some witty response. And then, with no problem at all, dodge pedestrians, dodge, buildings, and arrive to, Michael's location safely, unlike some of the vehicles that are, self-driving today. But, yeah, so in all of those episodes that I watched, I really don't remember Kit ever telling Mike, hey, sorry, I can't help you with this request right now. Why don't you try back later? Right? How inconvenient would that have been? Like in the middle of a fight scene, he's like, hey, Kit, come get me. And he's like, oh, I don't know what you want or where you're at, right? For that matter. Why don't you tell me your location? So we were promised big things. We saw movies like Star Wars and C-3PO and Robot from Lost in Space, HAL 9000, Jarvis from the Marvel Universe, right? This idea of conversational AI, it goes on and on with all of the what Hollywood has shown us and promised us. And after 4 decades of watching TV and waiting in anticipation for Kit to come to life, giant tech introduced AI to the world, and when it doesn't understand us, it says, sorry, I'm having trouble understanding you right now. Please try a little bit later. And it just, imagine watching a movie, and that's the response that you get when they ask, open the pod bay doors, please, Hal. And he's like, I'm sorry, I don't know what you want. And you find yourself today, quickly frustrated with your little white box in your room, and you're yelling at it, and you're yelling at your phone in complete frustration, and because you have to speak to it in a very specific way. And why? Why do we have to speak to our voice applications in a way that is, not conversational? And to me, the reason seemed to be that some of these companies or creators of the first generation conversational AI bots were concerned more with marketability rather than functionality, right? They wanted to be the first to market. Some of the cooler features that you probably saw in early AI or conversational AI were these Easter eggs, right? Where you could ask a silly question like, who lives in a pineapple under the sea? And the response would be SpongeBob SquarePants, right? But if I asked the little white box in my room the same question again, the answer is going to be SpongeBob SquarePants. And I can ask that question 100 times, but every single time, the answer is going to be the same. That doesn't sound very conversational, right? I mean, think about when you call your airline, and you call American Airline, for instance, right? And they're on the phone, hey, Justin, hi, welcome, thank you for calling American Airline, how can I help you? And you're like, oh, this is cool, they know who I am. But then by the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 10th, right, time, it's not cool anymore. It's like, it's kind of expected, but it doesn't feel conversational, right? It's repetitive. And so this brings me to the first thing that we have to change in order for conversational AI to move from where it is today to where we want it tomorrow. And that's variety in responses. People almost never start a conversation the same. The deeper a conversation goes, right? So you're sitting at a table with your mods, Thanksgiving, and she goes, how's it going? It's always the same, right? How's it going? How are things at home? And your response is probably gonna be the same. Oh, it's great. It's great. And then she's like, no, really. And then you don't know what you're gonna get after that, right? And that is the nature of conversation, right? The deeper you go into the conversation, the more variance you're gonna see. Like our example with the AI, where I was saying, who lives in a pineapple under the sea? If I asked the robot that question 100 times, at some point, if you were to have the same conversation with a person, they're gonna snap, right? The conversation is gonna change. They're not gonna keep saying SpongeBob SquarePants. And your friend is eventually gonna say, you're a psycho, stop talking to me, or why are we even friends? Or even better yet, I'm just gonna duct tape your mouth shut. Stop asking me this ridiculous question. Which brings me to another cornerstone of conversation, right? Unpredictability. Conversations will often have points where they pivot from the original path. So we go from who lives in a pineapple under the sea to that's rude. And now the conversation has changed. So again, how do we change that? How do we move from where we are today to where we want to be tomorrow? And the first step in that is using a different tool set. IVRs were built with flow diagrams and a couple of understanding of the business requirements, but that was pretty much it. Second, we need to rethink our approach of design and how we design IVAs. And third, we need to keep our designs as close to natural conversation as possible, right? So anticipate those pivots, anticipate the change in the conversation, and also be ready for those surprises that might be thrown at you in the middle of a conversation, and variability. Right? Don't always make your responses the same at the beginning. Like, hi, welcome to American Airline, right? It would be nice to be like, hey, welcome back, right? Or, guess what? you've got you've got a flight coming up in a couple days, something like that, right? It just change it up, because that is the nature of a conversation. But one of the last points I want to drive home is, any conversation that we have, it is important that we maintain the state of the conversation's context, which is probably one of the most important bits of a conversation. The next thing is adopting data analytics. So I know that from experience working with and building IVAs that it is important to understand the business and what your customers need. And it's hard to sit at a table for hours with everyone that's involved in the business and just trying to guess what someone's going to say. And then once you put that bot in the real world, or that application in the real world, it has maybe a few intents that we weren't anticipating. And the reason is because you can't anticipate every bit of information that someone's going to throw at it. And so the best way to draw or plan that roadmap, right, is to adopt data analytics as part of your go-to-market strategy, and and to be the next step in building your successful applications, because of the fact that we still use the intent-driven model today with our NLU and NLP engines. And the best way to prepare the conversational AI application is by understanding what your users need. So real user input, it should be analyzed if it is available, and for trends like common intents, acronyms, business-specific verbiage, telco, if someone says something like telco or crypto, applets, demon, I'm not really sure, but however you say that word. Also allowing you to build a roadmap of the paths that a conversation might go. And all of this is made possible by observing or studying the data that you have available to you. And so you probably want to know what's next, right? We're going to change our mindset of how we build these these conversational AI applications. What do we need to do next? So we need to assign a leader, right? We need to, and I think it's only fitting for the theme, considering we opened up with some movies, that we use a director as an example, right? Someone who keeps the bigger picture but doesn't dive into the weeds of what a conversational AI application will be doing. They want to maintain the bigger vision, right? So in the vertical of healthcare, we want to make sure that we're staying focused on providing the best healthcare application that we can. And the next step is we want to enlist our data scientists so that we can construct a framework for our conversational AI application to live in. Next, our business analysts will talk to customers, clients, users, agents, and anyone who is pertinent to the business to find out the rules that the application will need to follow. Right, so there's no point in having an application that is built for healthcare if we're just going to take, some of the rules that I heard you guys talking about earlier was if you have a customer who is trying to set up an appointment, but it needs to have a referral tied to it before it can be scheduled, right? Those are things that we need to make sure that we're considering whenever we're building out this framework. And last, we need to draw a high-level design document, or we need to draw up high-level design that includes the product's inputs and the product's outputs. Next, we need to have a large room of diverse individuals who will be able to help us create. These will be the creatives of our effort here to deploy this conversational AI application. And what we like to say is we'll create a writer's room with a diverse group of people who will generate a variety of prompts, responses, and questions, right, that your conversational AI might be asked, and vice versa. With respect to the information provided by the data that we were analyzing and provided by the analysts, and within the confines of our framework. So, we want to make sure that we are inputting a variety of, right, we're creating a variety of prompts. So at every point, major point anyway, in the IVA where we may ask a customer a question or the customer may ask a question, we have a variety of responses that we're going to provide. So again, so that it feels more conversational, right? That welcome message isn't going to be the same every single time. Or whenever a balance is read back, it's not going to be the same every time. Or if someone asks, hey, where is your nearest office located? It's not always going to be, we're located at 123 Strawberry Lane, right? we can tell them, oh, we're at the corner of Cricket Hollow and Metric. Or, if the individual's like, well, that doesn't make sense to me, then we can provide a more generic response. But having that variety or having that room of people together to kind of brainstorm on prompts provides that better customer experience, and also allows you to prepare or build out what you want to say in case someone says something unexpectedly. So they're trying to schedule an appointment, and then they decide, you know what, actually, I need to cancel an appointment. So they're changing and pivoting that conversation. And this is where the creatives will get together and come up with those responses that the IVA or the digital application would deliver. I want to talk a little about the tech that we use in our conversational AI applications. And what we use is the NLP. We use NLP and NLU engines, so Google, Lex, Watson, some of the ones that I'm sure you guys are familiar with. And all of these platforms are mostly intent driven, right? So we identify what the caller is asking for, a bigger picture, and then we can drill down into the utterance and then extract meaningful data. But at the high level, it's intent driven. And we use those to build out our IVAs. Now, earlier I was telling you we have a team of people, but some of the newer tech coming out, like GPT-3, will allow us to actually enhance our conversational AI experience by providing us with more human-like synthetic responses that we can leverage in the future. And we can eliminate the usage of our these guys. But let's dive into the next part, which is now assembling our team, right? Of, as Erin liked to put it, the nerds and the creatives. So it is possible. If it is possible, we should try to keep our engineers, right, the people who are actually going to build out these conversational AIs, kind of separate from the creatives to allow them to focus on the nuts and the bolts, right? Because the closer you are to the product, I hate to say it, the kind of less creative you get as far as like prompting or planning for the surprises get. So the creatives will kind of pull the strings in the background, telling the guy who's building it, like, oh, these are some ideas, or inserting like extra error handling that the nerd, I hate to say it, but wouldn't have thought of because they're so close to the solution, right? They're actually in there in the weeds building. And it's better for us to give them more of like a cookbook than it is for them to write the cookbook as they're creating the pie. It's a lot harder that way. Sorry, was that a question? So if possible, we should allow the engineers to build the application while the cool and hip marketing people come behind, livening things up, adding the flair, right, that it seems that only marketing people are able to add. And believe me when I say that the flair is just as important as functionality, because it doesn't really matter if you have an application that delivers great functionality if it sounds and looks like crap, right? I mean, think about many of the popular applications that people use. Like, I don't know, I don't use it, but TikTok, right? If it obviously has an amazing algorithm behind it, but if it looked like a 1990s webpage, no teenager of yours or mine is going to even want to touch that, right? So it's important that it looks sleek, sounds sleek, that the user of that application is considered in the design and the build just as much as the hard work that goes on behind the scenes when you're building the back end. Next is the dangerous work, the work that requires a hard hat, safety glasses, and a reflective vest. Building your conversational AI application. Working with a team can be fun and it can be challenging at times, but when done right, conversational applications bring really great value to a company. One thing that we like to say whenever I'm in a sales meeting with anyone who's really willing and ready to buy an IVA, we tell them that the IVA, it frees up your agents, it frees up your humans to complete those more complex tasks, right? The ones that actually require a human to be involved, where the IVA can take away those simpler tasks, right? The low-hanging fruit, and bring real value to your company. And then the last bit of this, right? After you're done building and after you're done having fun with the marketing people, creating all the prompts and the variation and all that good stuff, the last part, and probably one of the most important pieces of all of this, is testing. I cannot emphasize this enough. But anyway, the last step of deploying your conversational AI application, smoke testing, white box testing, black box testing, UAT testing, all of these, or whatever approach you take, it doesn't really matter. But what is very important is that you thoroughly test every possible scenario before deploying your application into the real world, because just like any other application, first impressions are going to really determine the success and failure of your adoption and continued use. So let's review. We're going to build a framework for the conversation to live in, we'll use analytics to define the scope. We'll get writers in a room, right? Be creative. And lastly, we'll deliver a complete and quality solution with Q&A. Now, I know everyone in the room is probably thinking, Justin, you seem to know all the answers and how we can build amazing conversational AI bots. And I don't. But I do know that part of the reason that we do fail at delivering, great and successful conversational AI applications is because there's a few things, but mostly it's because the tools that I'm telling you to use, sometimes they get misused, right? Or perhaps we bit off more than our budget could chew. And the most important thing to remember, if you take away anything from today's presentation, is that conversational AI applications are extremely complex, extremely difficult to build, and they are time-consuming and cost money. And most of the time, customers almost always seem to want it yesterday and have half the budget to deliver the application that we want or that they need. And with all that being said, if you're interested in seeing where Five9 has gone with the points that I've driven here today, please feel free to scan this QR code and you can talk to Mambo.
For more analysis and expertise in conversational AI and intelligent authentication, visit opusresearch.net.